Hello and welcome back. In this video, we will learn one of the most important concepts in Django: how to define URL patterns and connect them to views using static routing. There are two types of URL configurations available in Django. One is using static routing and another one is using dynamic routing. So we will be focusing on static routing in this lesson. You'll also learn how to organize your URLs efficiently using the include function. So let's start by understanding what URL configuration really means in Django. Every time a user types a URL or clicks a link in your Django app, Django uses something called URL configuration to decide which view should handle that request. This configuration lives in a file called urls.py. Usually there are two urls.py files. One is there in your main project, and optionally each app can have its own urls.py file as well. So these files tell Django when someone visits this URL, call this function in views.py. So let's understand how to define static URL patterns in Django. So the syntax for defining static URL patterns using the path function is given over here. So what we mean by static route is a fixed path that points to a specific view function. So let's look at the syntax. So whenever we work with URLs, we have to import this path class from Django. So we always start by importing the path class from Django. And also we have to import all the views into this urls.py file. So from dot import views means import all the views that are available in our project. Now we have this URL patterns, and within this we can see that the path function is used. Let's analyze this. First of all, it says example slash. Now this is the part of the URL after your domain name. So after typing the domain name, if you append example to it, then it will call the example underscore view function. So views dot followed by the name of the view. So example underscore view is the function that should run when the user visits this URL. And name equal to example is an optional identifier which is useful for reverse lookups. So remember that these URL patterns are just a Python list, and you can define multiple URL routes inside this. Now let me walk you through a real-life example on the CodeChef platform in order to understand static URL routing using the path function. So here I have an example set up for you, and if we look at the file explorer, we can see that there is a project called My Site, and there is an app called blog which is created inside this project. Now inside this my site's urls.py file, which is the file that is open here, we can see that we have some code written. Now let's see what is happening in this code. So first of all, we import whatever is required, and then in the URL patterns we can see that there is an empty path here which signifies the home page, or if you simply type only your domain name, then it is going to call the home function. And notice that this home function is written inside this urls.py file itself. So here I have defined a function called home which takes a request and returns an HTTP response. This is the home page. So this is there inside this same urls.py file. And now here we have a path called blog. So if the user types blog after the domain name, then it should call the blog view from our project. Now if I look at the views.py file here, we can see that there is a blog view which returns an HTTP response, welcome to my blog. So this view will be called if the user types blog, and name is an optional identifier like I already told you. So this setup helps Django know exactly which view to call for which URL. Now if you look at this import sections, we are importing the path like I already told you. The path class is required, and since we are also having an HTTP response here, we have to import the HTTP response class, and we also need to make use of this view from the blog app. So that is why I am saying from blog, which is the name of the app, import all the views. So that makes it possible for us to access the views like this in the urls.py file. Because this urls.py file, it belongs to the project my site, but this views.py file, it belongs to the app. So in order to make it accessible, we have to import the views as shown here. Alright, so let's just run this and see if it is working as expected. So I click on the run button, which will start the Django server, and on the right hand side you see the home page has loaded, which says this is the home page. Now if I append blog at the end of this domain name after .com, and if I press enter, you can see it says welcome to my blog. So here what happened, when I typed blog, it called the blog view from the blog app. So what does the blog view do? If you look at the views.py file of the blog app, it just returns a response saying welcome to my blog, and that is what is displayed over here. Alright, now let's discuss organizing URLs with the include function. Now as your project grows, having all URLs in one file becomes messy. Like we saw in the previous example that we were having the URLs in the urls.py file of the project. Now that is where Django's include function helps. It allows you to split URLs into separate app level files and include them in your main configuration. Let's take an example here. You can see that we have an example project here called my project, and under this my project we have two apps. One is called the blog app, another one is called the shop app, and all of them have their own urls.py file. urls.py for the main project and urls.py for the respective apps. Now in the urls.py file of my project or the main project, we can see that instead of mentioning which are all the views to be called here, we are including the blog's urls.py file here. So we are saying include blog.urls, and if somebody visits shop, we say include the shop apps urls.py file. So when someone visits blog, Django looks into the blog urls.py file, which is this one. So in the blogs urls.py file, we have another URL pattern where we say that if somebody visits blog, then it should call this index page, and followed by blog. If somebody visits blog followed by detail, then it should call the detail view. So this keeps things modular. We just have to include them here in the main or the main project's urls.py file, and then in the respective apps urls.py file, you can define the URL patterns for that particular app. So let's take an example again on the CodeChef platform and understand this by practice. So here, as you can see, if I look at the file explorer here, we have a project called My Movies, and within this we have an app called Reviews. Now we have urls.py file for the main project, which is this, and also we have urls.py file of the app. Now let me show you the urls.py file of the main project. Now if somebody visits the home page, this is what will happen. So when we just visit the domain, the home view will be called, or the home function will be called, which is defined within this urls.py file of the main project itself, and it is just going to return a response saying welcome to the movie reviews app. Now if somebody visits reviews, that means after the domain name, if they type reviews, then what we have done here is we are saying that include the URLs of the reviews app. So including the movie reviews app here. So let us look at the urls.py file of the reviews app. So this is the urls.py file of the reviews app. So if somebody visits here, coming to reviews, then views.home will be called. Now here we have a views.py file for the reviews app, and then you see the home view returns this. It is going to say welcome to movies review. Check out the reviews for some amazing movies, Inception, Interstellar, and The Dark Knight. And then we have some more views here like Inception review, Interstellar review, and The Dark Knight review. Now let me come back to the urls.py file of the reviews app. Now here, followed by reviews, if somebody types Inception, then it is going to call the Inception review view, which is a view I already showed you here. And if somebody visits Interstellar, then it is going to call the interstellar review view, which also is defined here. Similarly for the Dark Knight. So this is how it is going to work. So let me run it and show you how it works. So when I click on run, the Django server would start, and you see that we are just in the home page, and in the home page it is just going to return the response, welcome to movies review app, and that is what is displayed over here. Now let me type reviews. Now after this .com, I'm going to say /reviews. Now you see it says welcome to movies review. Now what happened here is that when I type reviews in our main urls.py file, it says include the reviews.urls. So it will go to the urls.py file of the reviews app, which is this one. Now here when it came, this is the home page for this particular app, and here it is going to call the home view. Now what is the home view? Look at the views.py file here, and this is the home view in the views.py file of the reviews app. Okay, so here it says welcome to movies review, and this is the thing that is displayed over here. Now if we type any of these, it should call the corresponding view. Let me type inception, now followed by reviews. Okay, remember, followed by reviews. If I type inception and press enter, you can see that it gives me the details of the movie Inception. Now what happened here, when I typed Inception, we are inside this urls.py file of the reviews app, remember that, and then when we type Inception, it calls the Inception_review view. And where is that view? That view is here in the views.py file of the reviews app, and in Inception reviews view, you can see that it returns an HTTP response which gives the details of that movie, and that is what is displayed over here. So similarly, if I replace this Inception with the other names that are given over here, then it will display the corresponding details of those movies. So this is how Django knows which is the right view function to be called based on the URL that is entered in the browser. So that is how static URL routing works using the include function in Django. Alright, you have just learned how to define URL patterns and organize them using the include function in Django. To make sure you have mastered this concept, try out the practice problems that are available on CodeChef for this lesson. You'll define your own URL patterns and see how Django routes user requests to different views. So let's just quickly recap what we have studied in this lesson. We have studied how the path function defines routes. We have also seen how the include function organizes URLs across multiple apps. And we have also seen that the main urls.py acts like a traffic controller for your project. Now in the next video, we will explore dynamic routing, where URLs can take parameters like IDs or slugs. So I'll see you in the next video.